Hi, my name is Casey Matringa, and I am the newborn photographer for Narrow Productions here in Soldotna, Alaska. Today, we're going to be covering 3 specific wrap styles that are my go-tos for every newborn session that I do. I usually don't vary from these, so they just tend to be my favorite. I like the full body wrap. I don't know if there's really a name for it, but that's just what I call it. The Criss Cross Wrap, one with their little toes poking out, and then also the egg wrap. So my settings whenever I'm doing wraps, I keep it pretty similar across all the sets that I do. I like to keep my shutter speed at 200 because that's what works best for the Einstein that I use. My aperture is always at 1.8 for sets of just baby. And then my ISO, once I move from the table to the floor, I bump it up from about 125 to about 160. First, we're gonna start with what I call the full body wrap. Again, I don't know if there's really a specific name for it. I know a lot of people kind of refer to it as a potato, but I don't use any belts or any other types of stuffing to get that more round look. I just kind of do a full body wrap, and my aim is not always for a lot of the roundness in potato, but that's just my style. So what I do is I've tried specific gadgets to use as a base, and I do like them, but at the same time, before I tried any of them, I was always really happy with this $2 piece of fabric that I found at Joann's. Anything else I've tried since then, I don't know if it's just because I just kind of have my flow with this and it works really well. So a lot of those things work great, or if you're just a more efficient person like me, really stretchy fabric from Joann's works excellent as long as it's really thin and has a 4-way stretch to it. So what I'm gonna do is start off with like just a little bit of a tail right here. That's probably about a good like 8 or 9 inches on one side of the baby. So I'm gonna slip my hand up behind her and pull that behind. And I'm not worried about getting it all the way down to her tush because really, especially whenever I have a really cranky baby and I just wanna go straight to a wrap set just to be able to get some images to fill the gallery. The first thing I go for is to try and control their arms, because when they're mad and when they're on their back, their arms are flailing, their legs are flailing. But until I get the arms secured, I can use my stomach to kind of keep their legs from going crazy, because I always feel like they're like a little toy. When their arms and legs start going, they like literally like wind themselves up and get themselves even more upset than what they are. She's pretty chill, so she's not gonna show you a great example of that. But first we're gonna start with the arms. So I'm gonna take the top corner here, and I'm gonna take the arm that's closest to her, and I'm just gonna cross it across her chest. I'm not really worried about whether or not her hands stay flat the whole time, especially if she was gonna be a really cranky baby. I just don't wanna make them any more angrier than what they are, so I leave their fist. So you're gonna take it over the top of the shoulder. You're gonna use the shoulder to just kind of like help secure that in place. And you're gonna take this corner and go over the arm. And as soon as you go over, then I switch hands and I use this one hand to press if I can. And then I use my thumb and hook it behind the knee. What this does is just helps to lift their hips and then swoop that little tail under. So we've got the first arm secured. She's not sure what she thinks about this. And then the second one. So the second one is usually gonna be the one that if I do have it kind of coming out of the wrap for like decor part for the posing, that's gonna be the top hand. But at first, I'm not worried about whether or not it's in a fist, because they're gonna move, they're gonna squirm during the whole wrapping process. So you're just kind of wasting time trying to make sure their fingers look perfect in the beginning. So just make sure their hand gets up there. You don't want the wrist to come across the center of their chest too much, because what that does is it makes their hand stick out of the wrap too much, and it makes it look really large, even larger in the picture than what it physically actually is proportioned to them. If you have it pulled too far back, then it's too hard once you get them wrapped to really get their elbow up, because you especially don't want to be yanking on their fingers at any point, because those joints are really soft and small, and you don't want to pull any fingers out of socket. So I get it pretty good and centered. The palm placement pretty much over the heart. So now I'm going to take this other corner and diagonally, so it kind of does like a little bit of a crisscross, diagonally get that across, switch hands here, and then I'm gonna use this wrap to help pull against, so that when I'm tucking, it's not pulling this in, and that way it stays nice and tight. So once I get that behind her, I'm gonna put my hand across the chest again, just because if it's a feisty baby, you'd be surprised how easy they can ninja out of that. So now you're gonna take the tail and you're gonna flip sides just for added security to make sure it's nice and snug. Preemies, I notice, are a lot more pressure sensitive. So I usually like to start with wrap sets with them because this actually makes them feel secure and calm. Even babies who aren't preemies, if they are still feisty or gassy, that extra pressure just makes them feel a lot more comfortable than if you're trying to do more like naked technical posing with them. So once I get that around the upper body portion, now I'm gonna take the top of this and use the shoulder just to hook it, just to kind of anchor it, because now I'm gonna crisscross her legs and we're gonna grab the tail, make sure it's still over the shoulder somewhat, and we're gonna swoop across her butt. And then I'm gonna use my abdomen to help secure the legs, and then lift and then come back around, almost like you're making a full circle around her body. And you can tell she's already loving this. Oops. Let's get that back up over the shoulder. So at this point, like, this base wrap doesn't have to be super pretty. Getting these legs crisscrossed and tucked up, when you do that swoop under the tush, it just kind of helps to like lift their hips towards them. So it just kind of gets them to go into this little cute nook shape. And then I'm going to use this to go over the feet so that those toes aren't popping out, and it just kind of makes the overall finished wrap look smoother once you get onto your second one. Go around again, and then one more time just to add that extra layer here in the middle. Okay, so here we have our base wrap. The tail I just hold on to in the back. There's not really anything to secure it to. See, she's already really happy about this one. So now we're ready for our second wrap. My favorite wraps are from Olive and Lace Props. She has extra long cheesecloth wraps, and they're extremely versatile. If anyone knows me personally, they know as a photographer, I like very versatile props. I do have a lot of props. However, I've definitely gotten to where I only like to buy things if they are going to serve me in many ways. So these are by far my absolute favorite of every wrap I've ever tried. I use hers most. So this one is especially great for this type of wrap because you are going to be wrapping more around them. Oh, goodness. And so it gives you that extra fabric to be a little bit more decorative if you want. Hi, are you okay? She's like, what is happening? I thought I liked it. Okay, so with this extra long wrap, I try to find my middle, which I lost it. So it's somewhere about here. They're actually really wide, so I kind of always leave them folded in half. Even after I wash them, I immediately fold them back in half, just so that way they're already ready that way. So I'm gonna take my center, and I like the more tattered edge at the top because when you're wrapping and crisscrossing down this way, that's the part that's gonna show, and it just adds some extra really pretty texture with your wrap style. So we're gonna lift her. We're gonna pull this behind. Again, we're gonna start at the part of her upper body around her shoulders. I'm not worried about pulling it down super far. We're gonna take the first side and diagonally come across over her shoulder. And then again, I like to sit on that just to help keep it nice and smooth and tight. If your wraps get too loose while you're wrapping, then they just kind of end up looking bulky. So you can see that this hand on top is gonna kind of stay in place because of our base wrap. So crisscrossing this next one over already leaves that cute little handout. If you have a baby that's super gassy, I call them gas hands. They get just really clenched all the time and they just fight you. Or I have some babies that hate having their hands touch. In that case, then if I'm just fighting with them too much and then they're just not letting me win about the hands and flattening it out, then you can actually hook your finger under this top part and then you can basically just kind of pull it up and over. But in this case, like, she's pretty easy going with her hands. So we do want to leave that out. So now I'm gonna go up, diagonally upwards towards her head from behind. Oh goodness, she's so tired. And then as I'm bringing it around the front, again, I never care what it's doing in the back or the bottom because that's never gonna show in the pictures. But as soon as I'm coming across the front again, that's where I get a little bit picky. And because technically you have 2 layers, you can give the illusion that you have lots of wrap layers over the top of her because you can kind of separate where this tattered edge is because it's already 2 layers. We got one more on this side. Yeah. And up and diagonal. Okay, so you can either do one more layer around where you go back behind her and diagonally across the front. Or I always like with little girls with this wrap, the bow is super cute. So I bring somehow, even if I start it where the wrap is like folded in half, somehow one tail always ends up longer than the other. So I just gauge which one that is, and that's how I determine which side to bring it to. So in this case, I'm gonna bring it to this side. You can do a cute little bow here at the bottom, or what I like to do the most is have longer tails with my bows. So you can actually, let's see. So this one's the shorter side. So I'm gonna bring the longer side to come to the side that the shorter one is coming off of. Oops, sorry sis. And then I don't like it to be 100% on this side, but not in the middle either. I just kind of do it a little bit more like offset. Bows are a struggle. I never can get that perfect bow. So I always end up messing with it forever. Okay. And then the nice thing about these wraps is that once you're done, because I technically went halfway into my second layer over, it still leaves the bottom portion of her pretty open with the wrap, but because this wrap has so much width to it, even folded in half, you can grab it and kind of use it to help close up the bottom of her a little bit, especially if you're gonna have your baby placed in a prop where there's not a whole lot of textiles going on in your prop. What do you think? And so now you have this really pretty decorative tail, and that's how you can use a decorative way to finish off this wrap style. Okay, and then I'm gonna show you how to finish this off as if you were gonna have a boy or if you just didn't wanna do a bow. I get bored easy, so I always like switching it up, no matter boy or girl. So you can just continue taking your tails and crisscrossing them. And it gets too short where you can't sit on it at some point, so I just tuck it in between the baby and my leg just to kind of help hold it in place. And then I turn the baby on their side, and be mindful of your knees. Like your knee is pretty bony, so you don't want to be like jamming it into the side of their face. So I always try to kind of bring their tush up more onto my abdomen, so that way the side of their face is more in the soft tissue of my leg. And then I just kind of do one little tie in the back, because most of the time that's never going to show, and I'm always able to tuck it behind something. And then you're gonna let me undo your fingers? You just take a final look at your wrap, and then you can pull the fabric in different spots just to fine tune it, and boom, here's a full body wrap. Another wrap we're going to be covering today is what I like to call the egg wrap. So this is a good one that can be versatile with using on the table or also in a prop, or both. If you have a baby that's not really loving being naked, or if they're just not really loving some of the more technical poses where they don't feel like they're being secured by something, this is a great one to still get some shots on the table and have a more simplified set, but still making the baby feel comfortable and happy. What I like to do is take about probably like a 10-inch tail to one side of the baby. And so I'm gonna grab it here at the bottom, and I'm just gonna slowly pull this and work it behind baby. If I'm having a hard time getting it all the way down where I need it, I can just lift baby and then get it the rest of the way. So with this one, you can do a couple variations. One of the easiest ones is just to kind of crisscross their hands over their heart like this. And then you're gonna grab your tail, just the whole thing, get it really nice and snug. I like it to go up over their shoulder a little bit. You do have to be careful if you have too much material go over the shoulder, then it essentially, once you get it around to the front, because it's being pulled snug, it can just go all the way up in the front too. So if you're really wanting to show their hands, then you wanna make sure you don't have too much material over their shoulders at the top. So once I get it across for hands, I'm gonna use my one hand to press it down so that I can adjust this side, get it ready without loosening or affecting my placement on here. And then I'm going to switch after I get this hand to secure the tail, almost like you're gonna karate chop that tail. It's right next to where her shoulder meets my leg. And then now I'm gonna release this hand. Once it's secure, pull on the longer part of the tail and just really get that tucked well behind her. And then, oh, excuse you. And then I always use my shoulders because I like to make sure the wrap is like nice and smoothed out. If it's too wrinkly or bunched up, then it just doesn't lay right for me sometimes. But again, like if it's a kind of a spicy baby or a cranky baby, I should say, I still want to keep my hand over their arms because that's not much of a tail, so they can literally just ninja right out of it right away before you're ready to go around. So my hand's still going to be there for security. Get this up and over my head. I should have showed that in the last wrap video, because if you don't, and you're going over this way, then you're gonna do what I did and it's just gonna sweep across their face. It doesn't hurt them, it's perfectly okay. Some babies, it does make them mad though, so I just tried to upset them as least as possible. So once I'm ready, I'm gonna get this up and over, switch shoulders with that tail, and get this to go around her body on the back side. And then now I'm ready to start incorporating her bottom half. So the top part of this, I want a little bit over the shoulder. That's what helps hold the fabric in place. Because you're working with fabrics most of the time that's like a 4-way stretch, it is really pliable, so it does move a lot. So that just helps kind of keep it in place, especially if your baby moves a lot. Now I'm gonna take the legs and do like crisscross applesauce. And there's a lot of variations on how you can have their legs in this. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. Most photographers I see like to just have them crisscross like this. So you get just the feet nicely placed over the top of each other in the final image. Sometimes it's really cute to just have one leg kicked over. It's also super cute. I just kind of read what my baby is liking or what they want to do. I've had some babies that no matter how many times I try to crisscross their legs, they want at least one foot out. They don't want both of them tucked up against their core. She's loving this though. So before I get this up and around her head, because it is a bunched amount of fabric, I can't slip it like I did the first time. So I just give a little bit of lift. I always make sure that my index finger is behind the back of the head. My middle finger is usually in the nape of the neck, and then these two fingers are behind her back, just to make sure that her head's being supported at all times when she's lifted. And then however long my wrap is about how many times I go around. So I don't get super picky on a lot of the placement of the wrap until I actually have baby posed in my proper on the table. But I do want it to go around pretty securely, because you're using, as you can see, as I lift her and then pull this wrap, you're kind of pulling together, and you can see her legs. It tucks them a lot closer to her core and gives that illusion that they're in this nice tiny little egg shape as if they're being inside mommy's tummy. Which is why, I'm not even joking when I say like 9 out of 10 times that I do this wrap and pose them on the table, I get a smile almost every single time. It's like this is their favorite or something. It's like it reminds them of what it's like to be inside mommy's tummy. So you can do a couple variations with the hands from here. So you can see you have that nice little tucked shape from their body. You can leave the one hand out. You can also find the other hand, and again, you always want to grab with one finger on the inside of the palm, one on the back of the hand. You always want to guide their hands that way. You never want to pull on their fingers, because you don't ever want to risk pulling a finger out of their joints. So you can take the other arm and pull it out. I'm not going to mess with that with her, just in case it upsets her. I doubt that it will, but you can get the one hand. So this hand that's on top is pointing towards the left side of her face. So the top hand is like this. You can find the bottom hand and pull it out to where it goes further up the side of her face and almost does like the praying hands pose. That's always a really cute one. Sometimes if you have like fresh flowers or little tiny flowers, you can also stick one in their little hand that's on top for just a little embellishment. Is always really cute. There's a lot of different ways that you can get some good variety and be flexible with this wrap. So she is all ready. So my third wrap for today is going to be the Criss Cross Wrap. This is one of my most favorite ones because my favorite feature of a baby is the little toes. So this is super cute because ultimately once you get them wrapped, their little toes are together and just has super cute little detail. If mom has her wedding ring, you can also place her wedding ring in there and have them hold it. If you have little felt hearts, that's really cute too. Otherwise, just the wrap by itself is super adorable. So to get started, my favorite wraps to do the Criss Cross wraps with are these extra long cheesecloth wraps by Olive and Lace. I do use a lot of my other regular wraps. They work excellent. The stretchier, the better for this one specifically. So what I'll do is try my best to find my middle in this. And because these are extra long, they're also really wide. So I also fold it in half. So here, this is actually half the width of this wrap itself. So I've already got it folded in half here. I'm going to take my more textured edge and I'm going to bring that down towards me. So I actually will just start sliding behind baby's head and start working it down. I love the versatility of these wraps because you can use them in so many ways and still have lots of room to work with. Lift up baby's hiney. I'm gonna get about this much in the front and I'm gonna elevate my knees just to tilt baby up a little bit and just kind of help use my abdomen to help kind of hold their feet in place, especially if you have a baby that's just being really fussy and you're not getting anything accomplished on the table and then you just wanna jump right into doing a wrap set. The pressure makes them feel a lot more secure than just being naked on a table. Plus, some babies just hate to be naked. So you're gonna tie this around the toes. I do a double knot just because babies are super strong. So you'd be surprised how easy they can bust out of some knots. So got that nice and secure. It's not applying so much pressure that it's immediately starting to change the circulation in her toes, but it is secure enough that she's not gonna immediately kick right out of it. So now I have my two tails. What I'm gonna do is take one side and I'm gonna gather it, make sure I have a little snug on that side, little snug on this side, and I put the tail behind me and I'm gonna take the opposite hand and place it across their chest. I don't get picky whether their fingers are curled or uncurled. It does add a little bit more of a bulge if they're having a fist, but again, if you're having a gassy baby, it's not gonna show, so it doesn't really matter if their hand is flat or if it is fisted. So then you're gonna bring this cross sways up towards her shoulder, and then as my hand is still pressing down on her hand to hold against her chest, I'm going to also take this and pull it pretty firmly. You can see that it's kind of pulling her hip this way a little bit, which is okay because I want to where as soon as I lift this hand, her hand's not just gonna slide right out of it. Then I'm gonna take this hand and place on top of her arm just to hold it so that I can release my hand from here. And again, if she's a squirmy baby, this is just continuing to make progress instead of having to redo everything that they're undoing as I'm wrapping. So now I'm gonna take this hand and grab it from right here above her shoulder, use my left hand behind, elevate her so that I can wrap with this part never loosening or lifting off of her. And then before I lay her back down, I'm gonna try and smooth this out just a little bit. It doesn't show, so it doesn't matter if it's twisted, but I like the way that it lays flat better. And then you're gonna take the tail and you're gonna sit on it. That way, if she is being saucy and moving around and squirming and she's just sharing her opinions about this, that's holding her nice and secure. So now I'm gonna do the exact same thing with this side. So I'm gonna get it a little bit tight from here and here and we're gonna cross upwards towards the other shoulder. So I always mess with my wrap to smooth it out. Now I'm gonna take the top hand. A lot of the times this one, I do like the fingertips to poke out, so I do wanna make sure this one is flat. So I don't ever pull from their fingers when I'm guiding their hand. They do have really tiny joints. You don't ever wanna pull any of their fingers out of socket, especially because they are strong, so if they're pulling their arm against you and you're leading with their fingers, then you can risk hurting them. So what I do is uncurl, put it flat on my hand, and then make sure I always have a finger underneath the palm, thumb on top of the palm, and that actually allows them to keep their fingers flat and open without you pulling and cranking on their fingers, and also guiding their arm by their palm like this. So I'm gonna swoop it over across her chest, continue to make sure those fingers stay flat, use my hands to press on top of the palm, and then now I'm gonna switch hands so that this hand can grab this side of the wrap. So now we're gonna go up and over. And again, use this hand to press on top. This one I want to help tuck, so that way it's already guided by the time this one comes back around to lift. And then now, take this tail, and again, you're gonna sit on it. And that way, if she's cranky and moving around a lot, you actually have her nice and secure, hands-free. So I actually allowed this to be a little loose at the bottom, so I did lose her feet a little bit. So what you can do is use your fingers to hold that opening, and then push from the heels instead of pull on the toes, because again, you never want to pull directly on their little bitty joints. So push from the heels, the top fingers can help guide that together. So essentially you're doing this pressing motion together. Heels, top of the wrap, push down. So push together, and that allows their little toes to pop back through and be super cute again. So now I'm gonna go back to this side, the very first one. I'm gonna use this hand to grab them kind of like where their knee, hip area is, just to guide their hips up a little bit so that I can make sure this tail is getting kind of under the curve of their tush. So I'm gonna pull this angled towards me and fix my wrap, smooth it out, pull it tight from this end and this end, and we're gonna go up and over one more time on this side. You don't have to worry about pressing so much on this side because they already have this base that's securing their arms. So I'm just gonna lift, swoop this back, sit on it again, go back to this side, lift at the hips, get this angled downwards. So again, this side is kind of going over the under the curve of their tush. Straighten out your wrap, secure tension here and here. Make sure you're not covering those cute little toes. And then, oops. I get really picky about making sure it's got enough tension so that I don't have any weird bumpy spots on the sides, just because there's so much fabric to this wrap. Okay, got it all smoothed out, lift, tuck the tail. So from here, you can do a couple of different things. You can actually wrap one more time, and because there's enough tail that you can get this from here all the way up and around her again, and just leave her as a crisscross, clean looking without tails hanging off. Or what I like to do a lot, because I always love texture, is I will stop sitting on them. I'll open them up and gauge based on, because I started with what I thought was even, still ended up with like an asymmetrical end, which I kind of like when I end up with those, because what I can do is kind of pull them to where they're out on the sides between her elbows and her knees, and I can come on over across the middle and do a little tie. With boys, that's really cute. So essentially you have like this nice little tail that I also love doing this style with family shots, because when they're holding them, you have this really pretty little textured tail that hangs down. With girls, it's also really cute to do a bow. This is a really bulky wrap, so sometimes the bow can be a little bit difficult, but it's also nice having so much extra fabric that you don't have to make the bunny ear part of it too big, because this will stretch out so far from having so much fabric and give you that really nice bow shape to it. And then look how cute that is. Okay, so we're ready. I like to wrap them first because especially if they're being really cranky, it gives them time to settle. So then what I'll do is hand them off to a parent, and then we will prep our prop. Thanks again for watching. I really hope you enjoy these videos, and I really hope that you were able to learn a lot and take away some valuable information to help improve and elevate your brand and your artistry.